Ave Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Peter approached Jesus and asked him, "Lord, if my brother sins against me, how often must I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" And Jesus answered, "I say to you, not 7 times, but 77 times. That is why the kingdom of heaven may be likened to a king who decided to settle accounts with his servants. When he began the accounting, a debtor was brought before him who owed him a huge amount. Since he had no way of paying it back, his master ordered him to be sold, along with his wife, his children, and all his property, in payment of the debt. At that the servant fell down, did him homage, and said, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back in full.' Moved with compassion, the master of that servant let him go and forgave him the loan. When that servant had left, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him a much smaller amount. He seized him and started to choke him, demanding, 'Pay back what you owe.' Falling to his knees, his fellow servant begged him, 'Be patient with me, and I will pay you back.' But he refused. Instead, he had him put in prison until he paid back the debt. Now, when his fellow servants saw what had happened, they were deeply disturbed and went to their master and reported the whole affair. His master summoned him and said to him, 'You wicked servant, I forgave you your entire debt because you begged me to. Should you not have had pity on your fellow servant, as I had pity on you?' Then, in anger, his master handed him over to the torturers until he should pay back the whole debt. So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives your brother from your heart." The Gospel of the Lord. There's 2 kinds of forgiveness going on here in our readings this morning. We began with the book of Daniel, and you're hearing in the book of Daniel the prayer that Daniel and his 2 friends are saying. They are pleading for mercy. They're about to be thrown into a fiery furnace because they will not obey the evil king who wants them to obey instead and worship false deities. But they're having none of this. However, one of the reasons why Daniel is in the fix he's in is because his countrymen have gone astray again. Just like America, we go astray. And so Daniel and his companions are pleading for God's mercy. They are actually righteous, but they're taking responsibility, very interestingly. They're taking responsibility for the sins of the nation. And so they plead for mercy, but not just for themselves, for that nation. And though they're innocent, they take on the guilt of the nation. Does that sound familiar to somebody on the cross? Yes. And they offer themselves as a sacrifice. Daniel says it very plainly. They're offering themselves as a sacrifice. They are prefiguring Christ, offering his life for the forgiveness of us. And so Daniel goes on, Let our sacrifice be in your presence as we follow you unreservedly. Daniel and his companions end up by escaping the fiery furnace by God's merciful hand. And as it's recounted, the king is perplexed because he threw three people into the fiery furnace, but it seems like there's another person there, an angel from God, to protect them from the flames, because God in his mercy has provided. Like our Heavenly Father, we must forgive. We say it very cleanly in the Lord's Prayer, don't we? Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. This is could be a very deadly part of the prayer. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. In other words, just like the parable, the Lord's Prayer is basically, if we say the Lord's Prayer, we're saying to God, don't forgive me because I'm not forgiving other people. If that's the fix you're in, you better get to confession. St. Thomas Aquinas would say this about forgiveness. The omnipotence of God is shown above all in the act of his forgiveness and mercy. That's what makes him so great. He seems to never tire of forgiving us. However, it is us who must come to him and ask for his blessing, his forgiveness. He never tires of forgiving us. And it seems that his throne for the forgiveness is on the cross. St. Thomas goes on, nothing makes us so godlike as our own willingness to forgive. This is when we become sons and daughters of the merciful one and sons and daughters of mercy. And so will my Heavenly Father do to you unless each of you forgives your brother or sister from his heart.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquae meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.